Breathing. The inverted fart of the mouth. To many, such an act comes rather naturally. Some would even say that they do it from birth. Some say it's a process so simple that even plants and sea sponges are able to do it without even having a brain. Now I, however, have surpassed them in foolishness. Breathing never came easy for me. Being an asthmatic, it's always been a challenge. Even when I was born, I breathed early and had to have my lungs pumped immediately after being delivered. That's a true story. I was so excited, but I did not have the fundamentals. It was a crisp night. I was not even 10 at the time, having been breathing for a good long while. By this point, I felt pretty confident in my abilities. And yet one night, I was falling asleep. 7:30 p.m. And as I drifted off to sleep, I did what many people do and accidentally realized that my breathing was automatic at the time. And so it became immediately a manual act. I had to intentionally breathe over and over again. I thought, well, no biggie. Many years I've been doing this simple task. Many years I have breathed. And I knew, even though I had acknowledged it, it was an autonomous function of my body. So I thought to myself, fear not, young'un. You will breathe again. Simply close your eyes and go back to sleep. And so I laid there, waiting with truly bated breath. I waited and waited until I realized how cruelly it dawned on me. I had not taken my next breath, and I looked a bit concerned around my room over my stuffed animals and gifted ukulele from my pseudo-aunt. Why am I not breathing, I thought. Perhaps it's because I'm still thinking of it. Just try not to think of it. But the harder I tried to ignore my state, the more prevalent it became in my mind. And so I realized, well, perhaps I need to help my brain out, remembering how to do this basic function. I thought, all right, let's breathe. Chilling as the terror of the dawn as the sun crests over water. Bitter and cold. I realized and asked myself, how do you breathe? Such is a question I'd never had to ask myself before. But I found myself struggling to comprehend this simple motor act. How do you breathe? I thought to myself, well, breathing is just the simple act of sucking in air into your lungs, into your chest. So I said, well, all right, well, let's just suck for a second. And so I sipped with futility at the air for a moment. All it did was make me burp, the true fart of the mouth. At this point, I was becoming partially alarmed. So I calmly exited my bed, sauntered my way down the hallway to my mother's bedroom, in which I found my mother and sister laying, talking, laughing, enjoying their evening, as they should. And I waited for them to find a lull in their conversation, and my mother looked up at me and she said, "What do you need, sweetheart?" And I looked at my mother. I looked her in the eye and I said, "I can't breathe." Now my mother immediately panicked. This fueled a maternal fire in her I'd not seen yet. She sprinted from the bed, immediately to her closet, throwing on whatever loose clothes she could, because she knew she needed to get me to the hospital. Meanwhile, my sister, ever the angel, rushed to my aid. She came before me and she said, "Try to breathe." And I looked at her and I said, "I don't know how." I looked over to my mother, glancing in my attention deficit way, to see her stepping like a flamingo with vertigo, trying to get her socks onto her feet, over her sweats. My sister gained my attention once more. She said, "Follow me." Okay, follow me. She stood back. She assumed a ballet stance and she said, "Just..." And again. And ever in vain effort, I returned with simple sips at the air. Time was running short. My lungs were slowly running out of fresh air. The water of my life was drying. And so I reached a state of panic. But not true panic. A simple state of shock that this could be the end. This could be the final chapter of my life. The night that I forgot how to breathe. Pleading with my sister, how? I said, how? How do I breathe? And my sister replied with something I was already too familiar with. Just suck in. I stood still. The world around me paused and then ceased to exist altogether. The world faded to blackness, leaving only a spotlight cast over my form. Breathe, I thought. You know how to breathe. One hand on my abdomen, and one to the Lord I pressed in, knowing that surely, if I lost all air in my lungs, my instincts would take over and I would survive this night. I pressed the air from my lungs, and soon I found my plan was folly. For my mind did not resume. I simply stood there, realizing I had just spent the last of my life. And as I was admitting to the defeat I had bestowed upon myself, I relieved my hand, and something miraculous happened. Without thinking, without moving a muscle, simply only relaxing, a small gust of air entered my body, and I realized I knew how to breathe. Pressed my hand against my stomach once more, forcing that air out, releasing. Until soon enough, I opened my soft palate, the floodgates to my throat, and I let the eternal wave of oxygen flow through me, down into the moats of my chest. I remembered how to breathe. This new skill acquired, my life renewed. I turned to my mother and bid her to fear no more, for I know how to breathe now. I bid her peace as I walked off, back to my room in the night. No one spoke of that night again. It could have been lost to my memory, but it was not. This tale of grandeur, of heroic, of sacrifice, that surely would be written in song, remained etched in my brain. What could have been my last breath was only the basings of my first breath. I went to sleep that night, more a man than e'er before. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, for I knew how to breathe.